Officer Floyd Lindahl responded to a routine wildlife obstruction on rural Route 47, but the massive Asian elephant blocking the road wasn't just lost and distressed. It was protecting something. Planted rigid in a deep mud puddle, the 3-ton animal stood with tears streaming down its weathered face, guarding the murky pit with desperate, trembling strength. After a tense standoff and the arrival of wildlife veterinarian Dr. Anya Sharma, they finally managed to position their lights into the viscous darkness below. The elephant refused to move. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't debris. Deep in that muddy pit was something that made both responders freeze in horror. What could make such an intelligent creature risk everything to guard a hole of mud? What life hung in the balance beneath the surface? Stay with us, because what started as a simple traffic obstruction quickly turns into one of the most heartbreaking wildlife rescues you will ever witness. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any new stories. That was the first thing Officer Floyd Lindahl heard. It wasn't the usual sound of his afternoon patrol, not the hum of his cruiser's engine on the cracked asphalt of Route 47, not the whisper of wind through the scrub pine, nor the distant call of crows circling overhead. This was a sound that tore through the hot, dusty air of the rural access road. It was a deep, guttural, repeating trumpet blast. It sounded to his startled 42-year-old ears like something caught between a foghorn's moan and a child's inconsolable wail. He'd been a highway patrol officer in the sparse county of Whitmore for 12 years. He knew the routes, he knew the ranches, and he knew the sounds of the vast, unpredictable wilderness that stretched between the scattered farms and forgotten homesteads. This sound, coming from just beyond the bend where the road dipped toward the old irrigation ditch, was one of pure, undiluted anguish. Floyd pulled the cruiser over, the tires grinding on loose gravel and dried clay. He radioed in his position, his voice steady but curious. "Dispatch, this is Lindahl. I'm out on rural Route 47, mile marker 12, near the Hendricks irrigation access, going to investigate a possible wildlife obstruction. Sounds like a large animal in extreme distress. Code 1. He grabbed his flashlight from the passenger seat, though the late afternoon sun still blazed overhead, and stepped out of the car. The air was thick and still, heavy with the smell of dust and wild grass. The trumpeting sound came again, louder now, followed by a wet, rumbling bellow that seemed to shake the ground beneath his boots. "Sheriff's Department," he called out, the words automatic even though he knew they were meaningless to whatever was making that sound. He moved forward cautiously, his hand resting on his radio, not his weapon. He rounded the curve, his boots crunching on the sun-baked shoulder, and stopped cold. It wasn't a cow, it wasn't a horse, it wasn't even a bear. 30 feet from him, standing rigid in the center of a wide, muddy ditch, where spring runoff had carved a deep depression, was an Asian elephant. It was a fully grown female, but still a magnificent and intimidating creature. Her gray skin was streaked with dried mud and dust, her massive ears flared wide, her thick legs planted like tree trunks in the soupy earth. Her small, intelligent eyes were rimmed red, and running down both sides of her wrinkled face were 2 unmistakable trails of moisture. She was crying, but it was the sound that held him captive. The elephant would lift her trunk high into the air and release that terrible high-pitched trumpet call, then lower her head and rumble, not at him, but at the thing she was guarding. Her body was positioned directly over a deep section of the muddy pit, her trunk continuously sweeping and prodding the exact same spot in the thick, viscous muck. Every few seconds she would dip her trunk down, touching the surface of the mud as if stroking something invisible, before lifting her gaze back toward Floyd and releasing another heart-shattering cry. "Well now," Floyd murmured, his hand instinctively moving away from his radio. This wasn't an aggression issue. This was something else entirely. This was desperation. He took one cautious step closer. The elephant's head swung toward him sharply. She didn't charge, but her entire body tensed. She spread her ears wider, a clear warning, and released a sharp blast of air from her trunk. Then she shifted her massive weight, deliberately positioning herself more firmly over the spot in the mud. Her front legs stomped once, twice, sending tremors through the soft ground. She was refusing to move. She was guarding this patch of earth with her life. Floyd held up his hands. A placating gesture he knew the animal wouldn't understand. "Easy, girl, easy now. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to take whatever you're protecting." He backed away slowly, his pulse hammering in his ears. This was far beyond his training. He was a small-town cop, skilled at handling traffic violations and the occasional livestock escape. This was a job for someone with real expertise. He returned to his cruiser, the sound of the elephant's cries following him, more frantic now that she had identified him as a potential threat. He picked up his radio, his mind racing. "Dispatch, get me Dr. Anya Sharma at the Wildlife Response Unit. We've got a critical situation at Route 47, Mile 12. A full-grown Asian elephant appears distressed and possibly injured, and she's refusing to leave a mud pit. She's guarding something in that hole, and I have no idea what it is." 50 minutes later, Dr. Anya Sharma's dusty white wildlife response truck pulled up behind Floyd's cruiser. Dr. Sharma was a decade younger than Floyd, but carried the calm authority of someone who'd handled countless crisis calls. She stepped out, already assessing the situation, her dark eyes sharp and focused. She pulled a pair of binoculars from her pack and a tranquilizer kit from the truck bed. "Morning, Floyd. What's the situation?" she asked, her tone professional but warm. "See for yourself," Floyd said, gesturing toward the bend in the road. "She's been crying like that for over an hour now, hasn't moved an inch, just stands there guarding that exact spot in the mud." Dr. Sharma moved forward carefully, Floyd following a few paces behind. She stopped at a safe distance, raising the binoculars. She observed in silence, her expression shifting from clinical assessment to something deeper. "Adult female Asian elephant," she said quietly. "Estimated weight 3 to 4 tons. Signs of dehydration, possible heat stress. And you're absolutely right. That's maternal distress, pure maternal distress." "And the mud pit?" Floyd asked. Dr. Sharma lowered the binoculars, her jaw tight. "That's what we need to find out. But whatever's down there, Floyd, she believes it's worth dying for." Floyd stood at what he estimated was a safe distance, though with an animal that size, he wasn't entirely sure such a thing existed. The elephant hadn't moved since he'd first spotted her nearly 20 minutes ago. She stood like a monument carved from stone and grief, her body rigid, every muscle locked in place. The tears were what unsettled him most. He'd seen plenty of animals in distress over the years, deer with broken legs, dogs hit by cars, but he'd never seen an animal cry. Not like this. The moisture ran in twin streams from the corners of her eyes, cutting clean paths through the dust caked on her wrinkled face, dripping from her jaw into the mud below. She would lift her trunk skyward and release that sound again, a trumpeting wail that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her chest, raw and primal. It wasn't anger, it wasn't fear. It was something far more human than Floyd was prepared to witness. It was grief mixed with desperation, the kind of sound a mother makes when she's watching her child slip away and can't do anything to stop it. Between the trumpet blasts, she would lower her head and emit a low, rumbling moan that vibrated through the ground. Her trunk would sweep down, probing the exact same spot in the thick mud, touching it with a gentleness that seemed impossible for an animal so massive. Floyd realized with growing certainty that this wasn't a wildlife management issue. This wasn't an escaped zoo animal that needed to be sedated and transported. This was a crisis, something urgent and tragic unfolding in real time. The elephant's entire body language screamed of protective instinct, of a fierce determination to guard something precious hidden in that muddy depression. Her front legs were planted wide, her weight distributed as if bracing against an invisible force trying to pull her away. Every few seconds she would shift slightly, adjusting her stance, but never moving more than a few inches from that spot. The sun beat down mercilessly, and Floyd could see the toll it was taking. The elephant's skin looked dry despite the mud, her breathing heavy and labored. She hadn't taken a single step away from the pit, not toward the shade of the distant trees, not toward the irrigation canal where fresh water trickled just 50 yards away. Whatever was in that hole, she valued it more than her own survival. Floyd felt a chill run down his spine despite the heat. He'd handled plenty of dangerous situations in his career, but this felt different. This felt like standing at the edge of something profound and terrible, witnessing a drama that humans were never meant to see. He glanced at his watch. Dr. Sharma should be arriving soon. He hoped she'd have answers, some explanation for this behavior, some way to resolve this safely, because watching this magnificent creature cry over a pit of mud, refusing to abandon her post even as exhaustion and dehydration threatened to collapse her, was the most heartbreaking thing Floyd Lindahl had ever witnessed in 12 years of patrol. Dr. Anya Sharma moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd spent a decade responding to wildlife emergencies. She circled the scene at a wide radius, her eyes never leaving the elephant, taking in every detail. Floyd watched her work, grateful that someone with actual expertise had arrived. She crouched low, observing the elephant's posture, the way her ears flicked and rotated, the rhythm of her breathing. After several minutes of silent assessment, she returned to where Floyd stood by the vehicles. "She's not aggressive," Dr. Sharma said, setting down her equipment bag. "That's the first thing you need to understand. Everything about her body language screams defense, not attack. She's protecting, not threatening." She pulled out a notepad, scribbling observations. Adult female, probably mid-20s, severely dehydrated. I'd estimate she's been here for hours, possibly since before dawn. The temporal glands aren't secreting, which rules out must. This is pure maternal behavior. Floyd frowned. "Maternal? You think she has a calf?" "I think she believes she does," Dr. Sharma replied carefully. "That's what every instinct is telling her. Look at the way she's positioned. Classic guarding stance. The trunk movements, the way she keeps touching that exact spot in the mud. It's protective touching, reassurance behavior." She raised her binoculars again, studying the elephant's face. "And those tears, Floyd, those aren't just stress secretions. Elephants have incredibly developed emotional centers in their brains. She's experiencing genuine distress." Dr. Sharma began unpacking her gear with methodical precision. She laid out a tranquilizer rifle, though she made it clear it was a last resort. She assembled a portable ultrasound device, thermal imaging camera, and several coils of heavy-duty rope. From a large cooler, she produced buckets of fresh fruit, vegetables, and specialized elephant feed pellets. "We need to understand what's in that mud before we make any moves," she explained. "But first, we try the gentle approach. If we can lure her away with food and water, we can investigate without a confrontation." They spent the next 30 minutes setting up a feeding station 20 yards from the mud pit, arranging fresh hay, sliced watermelon, apples, and a large trough of clean water. The elephant watched their every movement, her ears spread wide, her trunk raised in warning. When they retreated to a safe distance, Dr. Sharma used a small air horn to get the elephant's attention, then gestured toward the food. The elephant didn't move. She didn't even glance at the offering. Her focus remained absolute, locked on that spot in the mud. "Interesting," Dr. Sharma murmured. "She's ignoring basic survival needs. Food, water, shade, none of it matters compared to whatever she's guarding." She lowered the binoculars, her expression grave. "Floyd, I've worked with elephants for 15 years. I've seen mothers protect living calves. I've seen them refuse to leave dead ones, but I've never seen one guard an empty pit of mud with this level of intensity. There's something down there, something she can sense that we can't." The afternoon dragged into early evening with agonizing slowness. Dr. Sharma tried everything in her considerable arsenal of non-invasive techniques. She played recordings of elephant social calls, hoping to trigger a response that might make the mother move. The elephant's ears flicked toward the sound, but she remained rooted in place. Dr. Sharma tried approaching from different angles, making herself visible, speaking in calm, soothing tones. The elephant would shift to face her, trunk raised in warning, but never stepped away from the mud. They tried noise deterrents, gentle ones, but thinking perhaps they could startle her into movement. She barely reacted, her resolve absolute. Floyd watched as Dr. Sharma made another attempt with food, this time carrying fresh sugarcane directly toward the elephant, moving slowly, telegraphing every intention. She got within 15 feet before the elephant released a warning trumpet and stamped her front feet, sending tremors through the ground. Dr. Sharma froze, then carefully retreated. "She's not bluffing," the veterinarian said, slightly breathless. "That's a legitimate warning. Get any closer and she'll charge." What disturbed Floyd most was the pattern he'd begun to notice. Every 2 or 3 minutes, like clockwork, the elephant would lower her massive head and probe the mud with her trunk. Not randomly, not searching, but touching the exact same location with what looked like tenderness. Her trunk would sweep across the surface, sometimes submerging completely into the thick sludge, then withdraw and touch her own face, as if checking something, confirming something. Then her feet would move, carefully, deliberately prodding the ground around that spot. It was the behavior of someone trying to reach something precious, trying to maintain contact with something that couldn't respond. "She's communicating with it," Dr. Sharma said quietly, coming to stand beside Floyd. "Whatever's down there, she's trying to reassure it, trying to let it know she's still here, that she hasn't abandoned it." The veterinarian's voice carried a note of sadness. "I've seen mothers do this with stillborn calves, the touching, the calling, the refusing to leave. It's grief behavior, but typically we'd see the body. This is different." As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the access road, the elephant's behavior grew more frantic. Her trumpet calls came more frequently, each one more desperate than the last. She began swaying slightly, shifting her weight from one leg to another, her trunk never ceasing its probing of the mud. Once she dropped to her knees, pressing her head close to the surface, releasing a low rumble that Floyd felt in his chest, more than heard. Then she struggled back to her feet, mud clinging to her face and chest, and resumed her vigil. "We're running out of daylight," Floyd said, "and she's running out of strength." Dr. Sharma nodded grimly. "I know. We need to see what's in that pit. We need to understand what we're dealing with." "Because she's going to die here, Floyd. If we don't intervene, she's going to collapse from exhaustion and dehydration, and she's never going to move from that spot." The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and the temperature began to drop. Floyd retrieved his cruiser's portable floodlight system, a powerful LED array he typically used for night accident scenes. The elephant had grown quieter as darkness approached, her trumpet calls replaced by an almost constant low rumbling. punctuated by that heartbreaking probing of the mud. She was running on pure instinct now, her body swaying with fatigue, but her position never wavering. Dr. Sharma helped Floyd position the light stands, setting up a triangular arrangement that would illuminate the mud pit from multiple angles without blinding the elephant directly. They worked quickly, conscious of the ticking clock. When everything was in position, Floyd glanced at Dr. Sharma. "Ready?" She nodded, her face tense. Floyd threw the switch. Brilliant white light flooded the area, transforming the dusky evening into artificial day. The elephant startled, stepping back half a pace, then immediately lunged forward again, repositioning herself protectively. But the lights did what they were meant to do. They cut through the murky surface of the mud pit, penetrating the viscous darkness that had hidden its secrets all day. Floyd moved closer, angling one of the lights downward, directly into the spot where the elephant's trunk kept touching. For a moment, he saw nothing but brown water and suspended sediment. Then, as his eyes adjusted and the sediment began to settle, he saw it, a shape, small, gray, partially submerged. At first, his mind tried to make sense of it, tried to rationalize it as a rock, a log, something ordinary. But then he saw the curve of it, the texture of skin instead of stone, and his breath caught in his throat. "Anya," he called out, his voice tight, "you need to see this." Dr. Sharma moved quickly to his side, following his pointing finger. When she saw it, she went completely still. "Oh, God," she whispered. There, sunk deep in the thick mud, barely visible beneath the clouded water, was a baby elephant calf. It was tiny compared to its mother, probably no more than a few weeks old. Its small body was tilted at an angle, one leg bent beneath it, the other extended awkwardly. Most of its body was submerged, only the top of its head and part of its back visible above the mud line. The calf wasn't moving. "Is it alive?" Floyd asked, though he dreaded the answer. Dr. Sharma grabbed her binoculars, focusing intently. She watched for what felt like an eternity, then exhaled shakily. "I saw movement, shallow breathing. It's alive, Floyd, but barely. That mud is cold, thick, and its airway is probably partially obstructed. If it's been like this for hours." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both understood. The calf was dying, had been dying all day, while its mother stood helpless above it, unable to free it, unable to save it, only able to bear witness and refuse to leave. The mother elephant saw the lights illuminate her baby and released a sound that Floyd would hear in his nightmares for years to come. It was a trumpet blast that carried every ounce of her anguish, her desperation, her plea for help. She lunged toward the pit, her trunk reaching down, trying again to grasp something, anything, but the suction of the mud and the depth of the hole made it impossible. She pulled back, crying, then tried again and again, each attempt more frantic than the last. "We have to get that calf out," Floyd said. "Now." "If we approach, she'll kill us," Dr. Sharma replied, but she was already moving toward her equipment. "We need a plan. We need to be fast, precise, and we need to keep that mother from trampling us while we work." Dr. Sharma's thermal camera confirmed what they'd feared. The calf's body temperature was dangerously low, indicated by the cool blues and greens on the display compared to the bright yellows and oranges of the mother. "Hypothermia," she said grimly, "combined with possible respiratory distress. Even if we extract it immediately, we're looking at critical condition." She zoomed in on the small head, barely above the mud line. "See how shallow the breathing is? It's using whatever energy it has left just to keep its airways clear. Every minute that passes, the mud is winning." Floyd felt the weight of helplessness settle over him. He was a highway cop, trained to control traffic and manage accident scenes, not equipped for something like this. But he couldn't look away from that small, struggling life, or from the mother's continued desperate attempts to reach her baby. The elephant had stopped trumpeting and instead released a continuous low rumble, a sound of encouragement, of reassurance, of desperate love. She would touch the mud above where her calf lay trapped, then touch her own chest, then reach down again, as if trying to transfer her own strength, her own warmth, through the earth itself. "How long does it have?" Floyd asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Dr. Sharma checked her thermal readings again, her jaw tight. "If the temperature keeps dropping like this, an hour, maybe less. That's assuming the airway doesn't become fully obstructed. If the calf shifts even slightly and its trunk or mouth goes under, it's over in minutes." She turned to face him, and Floyd saw genuine fear in her eyes. "We're not just fighting to save a life, Floyd. We're fighting to prevent that mother from watching her baby suffocate to death after standing guard all day. If that calf dies while she's still here, the psychological trauma could destroy her." They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound the mother's rumbling and the hum of the floodlights. Then the elephant did something that broke both of their hearts. She carefully lowered herself to her knees again, mud squelching beneath her massive weight, and pressed the tip of her trunk against the surface directly above, where her calf lay trapped. She held it there, perfectly still, as if trying to send every ounce of her will through the mud to her baby. "Stay alive. Keep breathing. I'm here. I haven't left you." "She knows," Dr. Sharma said softly. "She understands the calf is dying. That's why she won't leave. She's refusing to let her baby die alone." The veterinarian wiped her eyes quickly, professionally. "We don't have time for a slow rescue. We need to immobilize her long enough to get in there, break the suction, and extract the calf. It's going to be dangerous, messy, and there's no guarantee of success, but it's the only chance either of them has." Floyd nodded, adrenaline beginning to override his fear. "What do you need from me?" "Everything," Dr. Sharma replied, already pulling equipment from her truck. "I need you to trust me, follow my instructions exactly, and be prepared to move faster than you've ever moved in your life. Because once we start this, there's no stopping. We either save that calf or we fail in front of a mother who's been fighting for her baby all day. There's no middle ground." Dr. Sharma laid out the plan with the calm precision of a military operation. "I'm going to use a low-dose sedative, just enough to slow her responses, not enough to knock her down completely. We need her conscious enough to stay standing, because if she collapses into that pit, she could crush the calf. But we need her docile enough that she won't charge when we approach." She loaded the tranquilizer rifle with steady hands. "You're going to be the distraction, Floyd. I need her attention on you while I take the shot, and then I need you to keep her focused on something other than the pit." Floyd swallowed hard. What kind of distraction? Noise, movement, presence? Basically, make yourself the biggest perceived threat possible without getting close enough for her to actually reach you. Use your vehicle, the sirens, the PA system, whatever you've got. I need 30 seconds of her attention pulled away from that mud hole, just long enough for the sedative to start working and for my rescue team to get into position." "Rescue team?" Floyd asked. Dr. Sharma was already on her radio, calling in additional support. Within minutes, 2 more wildlife response vehicles arrived, bringing 3 more specialists and critical equipment, including a portable winch system, rescue harnesses, and a team of mud extraction experts who apparently existed for exactly this type of emergency. They moved with practiced efficiency, setting up their equipment just outside the elephant's range, waiting for Dr. Sharma's signal. The plan was simple in theory, terrifying in execution. Dr. Sharma would position herself at an angle where she had a clear shot at the elephant's hindquarter, the safest injection site. Floyd would draw the mother's attention forward and away, using his vehicle and sirens. The moment the dart found its mark, the rescue team would have approximately 2 to 3 minutes, the window when the sedative would be most effective, to reach the calf, break the mud's suction grip, attach the harness, and winch the baby free. After that, the mother's protective instincts would return, only now with the added confusion and potential aggression of a drugged animal. "What if she charges before the sedative kicks in?" Floyd asked, voicing the fear they all shared. "Then you drive very, very fast in the opposite direction," Dr. Sharma replied without humor, "and we abort, regroup, and try something else. But Floyd, that calf doesn't have time for a plan B. This is it. This is the only window we're going to get." Floyd climbed into his cruiser, his hands slick with sweat despite the cooling evening air. He positioned the vehicle at the edge of the elephant's range, ready to hit the lights and sirens on Dr. Sharma's signal. Through the windshield, he could see the mother, still swaying over her trapped baby, still rumbling that heartbreaking lullaby into the mud. He thought about his own kids, now grown and gone, and remembered the fierce protectiveness he'd felt when they were small, that primal instinct to shield them from any harm. This elephant was living that same instinct, magnified and stripped of any ability to actually save what she loved most. Dr. Sharma's voice crackled over the radio. "Everyone in position. Floyd, on my mark, you light her up. Rescue team, once that dart hits, you go immediately. No hesitation. We clear." A chorus of confirmations came back. Floyd's finger hovered over the siren control. His heart hammered against his ribs. "Ready," he said, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. 3, Dr. Sharma counted. 2, 1, mark. Floyd hit everything at once. The light bar exploded into strobing red and blue. The siren wailed, and he laid on the horn, creating a wall of sound and light. The elephant's head snapped up, her attention immediately fixed on this new threat. She took 2 steps forward, ears spread wide, trunk raised. In that instant, Floyd heard the soft, pneumatic pop of the tranquilizer gun. The dart struck home, embedding in the muscle of the elephant's rear leg. She spun, trumpeting in surprise and anger, confused about which threat to address first. "Go, go, go!" Dr. Sharma's voice shouted over the radio, and the rescue team sprinted toward the mud pit. The rescue team moved like a pit crew, each member with a specific role drilled through years of wildlife emergency training. The lead rescuer, a compact man named Torres, reached the pit first, dropping to his knees at the edge and immediately plunging his arms into the mud up to his elbows. "Contact!" he shouted. "I've got the calf's back leg." Behind him, 2 others were already feeding the cable from the portable winch down into the hole, fighting against the thickness of the mud that resisted every movement. The mother elephant, confused by the sedative beginning to course through her system, took a staggering step toward her baby, then toward Floyd's still blaring cruiser, then stopped, swaying. Her movements were becoming slower, less coordinated, but her eyes remained fixed on the humans swarming around her calf. She released a slurred trumpet call, trying to charge but managing only a stumbling lurch forward before her legs trembled and locked. Dr. Sharma was at her side instantly, hands on the elephant's shoulder, speaking in low, calming tones, trying to reassure the mother even as her team worked frantically behind them. "The suction is incredible," Torres grunted, his face straining with effort. "It's like the mud doesn't want to let go." He and another rescuer were both pulling on the calf's partially visible leg, but the baby elephant didn't budge. The mud had created a seal around the small body, holding it in place with thousands of pounds of negative pressure. "We need to break the vacuum, get air underneath." One of the team members, a woman with mud already coating her arms to the shoulders, worked a flat shovel blade into the hole, trying to create gaps, pathways for air to flow in and break the suction. The mud fought back, thick as cement, heavy as wet concrete. Every shovelful they removed was immediately replaced by more flowing in from the sides. "It's collapsing faster than we can dig," she shouted. Behind them, the mother elephant was beginning to regain some coordination. The sedative was never meant to fully incapacitate her, and her sheer size and adrenaline were burning through it faster than expected. She pulled away from Dr. Sharma, taking one determined step toward the pit, then another. "We're out of time," Dr. Sharma called out. "Whatever you're going to do, do it now." Floyd abandoned his vehicle and ran to the winch, adding his strength to the two team members already hauling on the manual crank. The cable went taut, vibrating with tension. In the pit, Torres had managed to get a rescue harness around the calf's midsection, the straps disappearing into the mud. "Pull!" he screamed. "Pull now!" They pulled. The winch groaned, the cable sang with strain, and for a horrible moment, nothing happened. The mud held its prize, refusing to surrender. Then, with a sound like a massive boot being pulled from deep muck, something gave. The calf shifted, rising an inch, then two. "Keep pulling!" Torres had both arms around the baby now, lifting, guiding, fighting the mud for every fraction of movement. The suction broke with an audible slurp, and suddenly the calf was rising, mud streaming off its small gray body, its legs dangling limp and lifeless. The mother elephant saw her baby being lifted from the pit, and something fundamental shifted in her demeanor. The sedative, the confusion, all of it burned away in an instant. She charged, not a drugged stumble, but a full, terrifying charge. 3 tons of maternal fury bearing down on them with surprising speed. "Get clear!" Dr. Sharma screamed. The rescue team scattered, Torres still cradling the mud-covered calf against his chest as he dove to the side. The mother reached the pit and stopped at its edge. Trunk extended toward her baby, releasing a desperate trumpet call that was part rage, part plea. Floyd stood frozen, the winch between him and the charging elephant, certain he was about to die. But the mother wasn't focused on him. Her eyes, her entire being, was locked on the small gray form in Torres's arms. She took one step forward, and Floyd saw Dr. Sharma raise the tranquilizer rifle again, finger on the trigger, prepared to fire a full sedative dose if the elephant attacked. The moment hung suspended, balanced on a knife's edge between tragedy and miracle. Torres laid the calf gently on a tarp the team had spread on dry ground, 20 feet from the mud pit. The baby was motionless, covered in thick brown sludge, its eyes closed. Dr. Sharma dropped to her knees beside it, her hands moving with practiced urgency. She cleared the calf's trunk and mouth of mud with a suction device, her ear pressed against the small chest. Heartbeat present, weak, respiration shallow, body temp critical. She barked orders to her team, who produced heated blankets, a portable oxygen system, and medical supplies from their packs. The mother elephant stood at the edge of the tarp, her body still trembling from the sedative and exertion, but she made no move to charge. Instead, she extended her trunk slowly, carefully, toward her baby. Dr. Sharma glanced up, meeting the elephant's eyes, and made a decision that went against every protocol. "Let her," she said quietly to her team. "Let her approach, slowly." The elephant needed no further invitation. She took one cautious step onto the tarp, then another, her movements gentle despite her massive size. She reached her trunk down to her calf and touched it with a tenderness that made Floyd's throat tighten. She ran her trunk over the baby's head, its back, its legs, checking, assessing, reassuring. The baby didn't respond, didn't move. The mother made a sound deep in her chest, not a trumpet or a rumble, but something softer, something private, a sound meant only for her child. Dr. Sharma continued working, wrapping the calf in thermal blankets, holding the oxygen mask over its small trunk. "Come on, baby," she whispered. "Come on, your mama's here. She's been waiting for you all day. Don't you dare give up now." She administered a stimulant injection, her hands steady despite the 1,500-pound elephant standing directly over her. The seconds stretched out, marked only by the hiss of oxygen and the mother's soft vocalizations. Then the calf's body shuddered, a weak cough, mud trickling from its trunk. Its eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. The baby tried to move its legs, a feeble kick that barely disturbed the blankets. But it was movement. It was life. The mother released a sound unlike any she'd made all day, a low, thrumming call of relief and joy. She lowered her head, touching her forehead gently to her baby's, her trunk caressing its face. Dr. Sharma sat back, allowing the mother full access. The team kept the oxygen flowing but otherwise gave the elephants space. The mother began cleaning her calf with her trunk, carefully removing the mud, stimulating circulation, encouraging movement. The baby responded slowly, weakly, but responding. It lifted its head, its own small trunk waving unsteadily. It made a tiny squeaking sound, barely audible, and the mother answered with that rumbling reassurance, a sound that said, "You're safe. I have you. I never left." Floyd watched from a few feet away, tears streaming openly down his face. Around him, the rescue team was similarly affected, hardened professionals who'd seen countless animal emergencies, us all of them crying without shame. They'd pulled a dying baby from the mud, yes, but they'd done something more. They'd reunited a mother with her child, answered a day-long prayer, validated every moment of that elephant's vigil. Torres approached Dr. Sharma, keeping his voice low. "The calf needs hospitalization, monitoring, probably fluids, and continued warming treatment." Dr. Sharma nodded but didn't take her eyes off the elephants. "I know, but give them a few minutes. After what she's been through, she's earned that much." The mother continued her gentle ministrations, and with each passing moment, the calf grew stronger. It managed to lift its head more steadily. It kicked its legs with more purpose. Finally, with visible effort and its mother's encouragement, the baby struggled to stand. It took 3 tries, its legs shaking, threatening to collapse. But the mother was there, using her trunk and her body as a brace. On the 3rd attempt, the calf stood, wobbly and uncertain but upright. The mother immediately positioned herself beside her baby, supporting it, guiding it. She looked around at the humans gathered nearby, and Floyd could have sworn he saw recognition in those eyes. Not gratitude exactly, but acknowledgement. Understanding that they had helped, that they had not been the enemy. Then, slowly she began to walk, encouraging her calf to follow. The baby took one trembling step, then another, staying close to its mother's side. Dr. Sharma made the call that would probably earn her a reprimand from Wildlife Services, but which felt like the only right decision. "We'll escort them to the irrigation canal for water and monitor from a distance. If the calf shows signs of relapse, we intervene. But for now, we let them go together." Her team nodded, understanding. They'd all seen enough to know that some bonds couldn't be measured in protocols and procedures. Floyd walked beside his cruiser, following at a distance as the mother and calf made their slow way across the access road. The baby stayed pressed against its mother's side, occasionally stumbling, but each time the mother was there, trunk extended, body angled to catch and support. They moved as a single unit, their steps synchronized despite the size difference, an ancient dance of maternal protection and filial trust. At the canal's edge, the mother stopped and helped her calf down the slight embankment to the water. The baby drank cautiously at first, then more eagerly, the fresh water clearing the last of the mud from its trunk. The mother drank too, her first water in over 12 hours. But even while drinking, her trunk never left her calf, continuously touching, reassuring, maintaining contact. When they'd both had their fill, they stood together in the shallow water, the mother using her trunk to spray cool water over her baby's back, a bath and a blessing. Floyd leaned against his cruiser, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. He thought about all the calls he'd responded to over the years, all the emergencies and crises that had seemed so important at the time. None of them compared to this. None of them had shown him such raw, primal love, such absolute refusal to abandon what mattered most. That elephant had stood over that pit all day, crying, calling, refusing to leave even as her own body failed. She hadn't been guarding a possession. She'd been keeping a promise. I will not leave you. I will not let you face this alone. Dr. Sharma approached, standing beside him in companionable silence. They watched as the mother helped her calf climb back up from the canal, the baby considerably steadier now, its color improving, its movements more confident. She knew, Dr. Sharma said finally. The whole time she knew her baby was alive down there. She could probably sense the heartbeat through the ground, or maybe it's something else, something we don't understand about elephant communication. But she knew, and she waited, and she trusted that if she just held on long enough, help would come. We almost didn't, Floyd admitted. If we hadn't gotten that light set up, if we hadn't seen the calf when we did. But we did, Dr. Sharma interrupted gently. That's what matters. We did. The two elephants began walking again, moving away from the road, heading toward the tree line in the distance where the wild country began. The mother's pace was measured, adjusted perfectly to her calf's capabilities. The baby stayed close, occasionally reaching up with its small trunk to touch its mother's face. They grew smaller as the distance increased, two gray forms against the darkening landscape, bound together by something stronger than any rope or chain. Floyd realized he'd been changed by what he'd witnessed. He'd spent 12 years as a highway cop, viewing animals as obstacles or hazards, problems to be managed and cleared. Tonight he'd seen something different. He'd seen intelligence, emotion, and love in its purest form. He'd seen a mother refuse to give up on her child, even when giving up would have been easier, safer, more rational. He'd seen the fierce, unbreakable bond that existed between parent and child, transcending species, transcending circumstance. As full darkness fell and the elephants disappeared into the shadows, Floyd started his cruiser. He'd file his report, though he wasn't sure how to capture what had really happened here in the sterile language of official documentation. How do you quantify witnessed devotion? How do you measure observed love? He'd do his best, but he knew the truth would exist beyond whatever words he managed to put on paper. He drove slowly back toward town, his emergency lights off now, the road quiet. Behind him, somewhere in the growing darkness, a mother walked with her saved child. Both of them headed home. Floyd had started his shift expecting another routine day. He ended it forever changed, carrying the memory of an elephant's tears and the lesson they'd taught him. Love doesn't calculate odds. Love doesn't surrender. Love stands guard in the mud and refuses to leave, no matter the cost. And sometimes, if you're lucky, love is answered.